Hello, everyone, and welcome back to American Ultras Talk. The USMNT fell to Mexico 2-1 in the final of the Gold Cup after a less than inspiring run up to that point, barely beating teams that we should have beaten pretty handily. And it showed against Mexico as they dominated us for essentially the entire game after Chris Richards gave us a dream start in the fourth minute. Great set piece by Sebastian Berhalter, pretty similar to the one we saw against Saudi Arabia, actually, where he plays in the free kick. Richards with a beautiful, beautiful header off the crossbar and barely over the line to give us the perfect start. But after that, it was all Mexico. They penned us in. We were defending deep for pretty much the rest of the first half and most of the second half as well. Basically, the only time that we weren't was there was like a 5-minute spell at the end of the second half where we had a little bit of possession, and then also at the end of the game after Mexico got their second goal, then we had to push, of course, for an equalizer, and Mexico let us do that. But Mexico controlled this game entirely. It went exactly how they anticipated it to go, and we just were stagnant for most of the game. And one of the biggest reasons for that, in my opinion, is because of Poch's tactical stubbornness. He trotted out the exact same starting lineup as the previous two games, which is the first time in USMNT history that the same exact starting lineup has started 3 consecutive knockout matches in the Gold Cup, which, if it's never happened before, it's either historically good or historically bad. In this case, I would say probably historically bad, because a lot of the players out there we know, we've been knowing the entire tournament, don't belong on the field. And some of them are just okay, but whatever the case, even the ones who did belong, for the most part, were pretty poor, because there's not a lot of turnaround between games. They're starting and playing the majority of the match, and all of them. Mainly, another reason is because Poch isn't using subs until way too late on in the match. I mean, we saw that today, and we saw it in the previous matches as well. So not only are the players starting, but they're playing the full 90, and if they're getting subbed off, they're getting subbed off in like the 80th minute. So really, they're not getting much break, and Mexico had some fully rested players, and they looked a lot more lively and up to the task than we did on the night. So let's just get into a couple of quick things that I want to mention about Poch before we go into the players and the player ratings. The biggest thing that I want to mention right now is with the bench, because as you guys probably know, in the Gold Cup, you can only have 23 players dress for each game. So 3 of the players who are in the roster have to get cut, essentially. Haji Wright's one of them. He already went home with an injury, went back to Coventry. Johnny Cardoso has been injured for the last few games, so he was the second. And the third, instead of cutting the third goalkeeper, Chris Brady, instead of cutting Nathan Harriel, who has not played at all in the Gold Cup and was shocking in the minutes that he did get before the Gold Cup against Switzerland, instead of cutting Brian White, who clearly is the third striker choice here, he decided to cut Paxton Aronson, who is probably, outside of Tyler Adams and Malik Tillman, the best midfielder in camp. Now, you wouldn't know that if you were just tuning in to the USMNT for the first time this summer, because he didn't play at all, really. I mean, he got a start against Switzerland. He was the best of the worst. I will say everyone was pretty bad, but I thought out of the 11 that started, he was the least bad. And a few appearances off the bench here and there, 5 minutes here, 1 minute there. He just didn't really get a chance to play, and you could say that about a lot of the guys. But continuing to start Luca de la Torre, who just is invisible, continuing to start Sebastian Berhalter, who offers absolutely nothing besides his heart and his mentality, but that doesn't really get you anywhere when you're not actually good. The only thing he's good at is set pieces, in which we have a better player on the bench in Jack McGlynn, who's a better player all around and also better at set pieces. So starting these guys over Paxton Aronson and not even having him on the bench when he would have been the perfect sub to come into this game, when Luca de la Torre came out about 10 minutes too late because he was not seen the entire 70 minutes that he was on the pitch, we brought on Damian Downs, a second striker, instead. We did that because we didn't have any midfield options, because Poch decided to cut one of the best players in the camp and not even have him available as an option. So that's one of the many things I don't understand. Another thing is why Quinn Sullivan, who started against Haiti as a right winger and actually looked pretty good. He was involved in a lot of attacks. I think honestly, you can argue that outside of what Luna gave us, that game from Quinn Sullivan was our best wing play the entire tournament. And despite that, he saw 0 minutes in the knockout stages at all. Definitely no starts because, of course, why would Poch change the starting lineup? That's way too much effort for someone who's getting paid $6 million. Not even any appearances off the bench, because of course Poch doesn't want to make subs until the 90th minute, and the guys he wants to bring on are other guys apparently. So just two things about the player personnel that I just really don't understand at all. But now getting into the player ratings, and just a heads up, it's probably going to be a lot of negative because outside of Chris Richards, I don't really think you can say anyone played that well. So we'll start with the goalkeeper, Matt Fries. I will say neither of the goals were on him. The first one was on Tim Ream. We'll get to that. Raul Jimenez with a great shot and a very touching tribute to his former teammate, Diogo Jota. Rest in peace to him and his brother, Andre. Gone way too soon. That was a nice moment, I have to admit. Even as a US fan, it was really cool to see that tribute, and I couldn't even be mad about the goal. But that was the first one. The second one was Edson Alvarez, of course, off the set piece. That was, I'd say, mainly on Alex Freeman because he's the one who kept Edson onside after the flick on from, I believe it was Vasquez, Johan Vasquez, yeah. So I can't really blame Matt Fries for either of the goals. I think his story the entire tournament has been he's been good, not great. He hasn't really been at fault for any of the goals besides the one against Haiti where he passed it straight to their player. But he also hasn't really made any saves that are too spectacular. Besides, of course, the penalty shootout against Costa Rica, but that's a different situation. If you're going to be a penalty specialist, you can sit on the bench and then come on in the last minute of the game for penalties in particular. Ultimately, I don't think he did anything to lose the number one spot in this tournament or tonight in the game against Mexico. But I also don't think he really did anything to secure his spot as locked in. So it remains to be seen whether he'll remain the starter or not. We'll have to see how some of our guys do with their clubs in the next year. But I don't think his spot is secure by any means. Player ratings, I'll give him a 5. Next up, Alex Freeman, right back. He had a very inconsistent game, and the problems with him have been basically the same the entire camp. He just doesn't really know how to judge balls in the air, and I think that is part of the reason why he left Edson Alvarez onside for the second goal. And just in general, you saw several occurrences in this game and throughout the tournament where a long ball was played to his side, a switch or something, and he just completely misjudged it and allowed the attacker, in this case Alexis Vega, to get through. Ultimately, I just don't think it was his strongest game. I think defensively, when he actually did go in to put a tackle in, I think he was pretty solid. But ultimately, I just don't think it was good enough from him. And he was kind of the reason the second goal happened. If he was just a step up or with holding the line, because there was no other U.S. player even close to as far back as he was, then it wouldn't have been a goal, and we probably would have gone to extra time. So I'm going to have to give Alex Freeman a 4 for this game. Ultimately, he's still a player who I think I'd like to see back potentially, just not over Dester or Scally. So I think opportunities, at least for the next year, are going to be hard to come by for him. But maybe next cycle for 2030, he can be a real option. Now moving on to, well, let's do the left back since we just did the right back. Max Arfsten, I actually think this was his best defensive performance of the tournament. He basically won every duel that was asked of him. I can't really remember a time where he put in a tackle, but there was a few times where he won aerials, which was good. The one thing that I will say for him is, I mean, this has been the story of the entire tournament, but he keeps getting caught too far up the pitch, and then he doesn't really make an effort to get back at all when he is caught too far up the pitch. I remember one instance specifically where Mexico had a counterattack, and he was at fault. I mean, we lost the ball on that side of the pitch. He was way too far up, and he wasn't even sprinting to get back. He was just jogging, and you can't do that as a left back. I know that he's not a left back. He's really a winger, a wing back if you want to push him back a little bit. But at the end of the day, that's where you're being asked to play. You have to adapt to it. You've been playing this position every single game. I believe he started every single game except for the one against Haiti. He started every single game this summer, including the two friendlies. So really, it's inexplicable for him to not have learned the position a little better by now. His positioning continues to be bad, but when he actually was put into defensive situations, so when he was in position, he wasn't that bad. No threat really came from him making any mistakes, which is more than can be said for previous games. So I'm going to give him a 5.5, and he gets the extra 0.5 because he did a little bit better and probably should have won a penalty. I think he had a little bit of impact going forward. Admittedly, it was kind of just that moment, but he dribbles into the box, beats one man, kind of loses out to the second man. But the Mexico player, I don't remember who it was. It may have been Jorge Sanchez, the right back, but don't quote me on that. Falls, and instead of using his hands to plant on the ground, he puts it directly on the ball before touching the ground. If you look at the freeze frame or the play entirely, it's kind of, I just don't understand at all what the refs and the VAR were thinking, not giving us a penalty. I'm not going to say that's the reason we lost because we just weren't good enough. Mexico were the better team. They deserved to win. But I just can't see any explanation behind why that wasn't a penalty. So I'll give Arsenal an extra half point for that. But otherwise, not too inspiring. Now on to the center backs, Chris Richards and Tim Ream. Richards is going to be my first somewhat good rating of the game and probably one of the only ones. I thought he was really solid defensively. I think his play and him stepping up not only as our best center back option, but also more as a leader this tournament, I think is the biggest positive we can take away from the entire summer. We finally have at least one center back who is secure, locked into the starting lineup, and we can be pretty confident that he will have good performances even against slightly better teams. He was very good defensively, and of course, excellent header to give us our only goal of the game on one of our only chances of the game. So I'm going to give him a 7.5. I thought he was very good at the back, and again, one of the very few positives we can take away from the game, and of course the tournament as a whole. His partner, Tim Ream, I can't really say the same for. I thought he was very bad, to be honest. I think it's becoming clear that he has lost his step. I mean, he's 37 years old already. He's back to MLS now. Of course, he was playing with Fulham in the Premier League, and he's not even looking good in MLS. And I think his play in the tournament was very uninspiring at best. And especially in the final, I'm putting him completely at fault for the Raul Jimenez goal that equalized in the first half. He just was way too slow. He went to ground, didn't get anything on the ball, and Raul scored. I just can't justify giving him a good rating, and I can't justify why he's still in the team. Honestly, maybe on the bench as a leader, but admittedly, I just don't think he even has the right mentality to be a leader on this team. Now, not a lot of players do. I think we've been shown that by the actions of some players, specifically the ones who decided to not show up this summer for the Gold Cup, but I don't see a reason why Tim Ream should be in the starting lineup, and I think not starting Mark McKenzie next to Richards the entire summer was a huge missed opportunity, and I think it might end up costing us in the World Cup next year. So Tim Ream, I'm going to give him a 4. Next up, the CDM, Tyler Adams, and I think this was Tyler Adams' worst game, honestly, in a USMNT shirt for quite a while. I can't really remember any time where Tyler Adams was as bad as he was, especially in the US shirt. He's always been so reliable. He's still the guy who I think should be captaining the team, but I think it was evident today that his passing ability or lack thereof just was costing us way too many times. He just couldn't really beat the Mexico press, and once again, this would be a perfect situation to have someone like Jack McGlynn next to him in the midfield where he can kind of mask Tyler Adams's passing flaws. Adams can mask McGlynn's defensive flaws, but no, we have Luca De La Boring, as Yuri likes to call him, next to him doing absolutely nothing for 70 minutes, and then McGlynn ultimately comes on in the 82nd minute playing as a winger. So just another inexplicable decision from Poch, but for Adams, I just think it was poor. And another thing that I did not like from him in particular, but you can say this about the entire midfield, is they didn't put any pressure on Gilberto Mora. Of course, the 16-year-old for Mexico had a very good game. The youngest starter in a final in history, not just CONCACAF, just in general in international play, beating Lamine Yamal, beating Pele. And the reason why he looked so comfortable is because we didn't ever pressure him. We didn't put a body on him. It might sound harsh to say to go in hard on a challenge on a 16-year-old, but it's USA versus Mexico. There's no love lost here. And I looked at his stats at halftime, and he wasn't involved in a single duel. Gilberto Mora wasn't. And that's just unacceptable, to be honest, because you have to make him feel the occasion, make him feel the pressure of the moment, and make him feel what it means to be playing in this rivalry. And we just didn't do that. We decided to let him play basically unopposed the entire game, and that's why he was so effective. If Tyler Adams had put in an early challenge on him, same goes for Berhalter, same goes for De La Torre. Really, anybody, one of the center backs, I'm not picky. Someone put in a hard challenge on him early in the game, set the tone, and then he wouldn't have been as effective as he was. I'm going to give Tyler Adams a 4.5. I don't think he was good today, and I expect a lot better from him as one of the best players in the roster and one of the leaders of this team. His partner, Luca De La Torre, there's not much I can really say for him because he didn't do anything. I think there was multiple times where it looked like we were playing with 10 just because he was nowhere to be found. He wasn't involved in the defense. He wasn't involved in the attack. Not that there was much attack. He wasn't really involved in possession. I'm just going to give him a 3. I thought he was invisible, and he played ultimately way too long. He shouldn't have been starting after his bad performance last game. I think you could say that about a lot of the players in the lineup, but him in particular, especially when we have the options that we do on the bench, and ultimately he lasted 70 minutes too long on the pitch. So I'm going to give him a 3. I don't want to see him starting for the USMNT ever again. I honestly don't even want to see him in a camp ever again. As simple as that. Onto the right wing, but really more of a midfielder, Sebastian Berhalter. And I just don't get this tactical thing that Poch is doing of putting midfielders on the right wing. It would make more sense if Alex Freeman was pushing higher, and we did see that a little bit towards the end of the game when we were pushing for a goal. But I think in general, Freeman was pinned back for most of the game, and part of that was Mexico having possession in our half, basically 70% of the game, I would say. But I think just in general, it kind of becomes useless having a midfielder and a more defensive one at that out on the wing if your right back isn't going to bomb forward as much as he should have. So again, just another reason why Quinn Sullivan or Brendan Aronson probably should have started on the wing. I wouldn't mind seeing Berhalter over De La Torre in the midfield because he does bring the tenacity, but ultimately, I just don't think defensively he was as good as he could have been. He looks busy because he just kind of flies around being a menace, but he didn't actually contribute that much defensively. Of course, he had the set piece to Richards, which was a good ball, a good assist. I'll give him credit for that. But outside of that, he just didn't offer really much. So I'm going to give him, it would probably be a 4, but I'll bump it up to a 5 because of the assist. So I guess an average rating there for Sebastian Berhalter, another player who maybe he's on the fringes of the squad, but just definitely should not be starting for the USMNT. And speaking of players who had been in hot topics to start for the USMNT, Diego Luna on the left-hand side. People were saying before the game whether he should keep the number 10 over Pulisic, the jersey number, not the position. People were debating whether he should start over Tim Weah. And I think this game proved that, yeah, Luna is an exciting prospect. He does some things that no one else in the player pool does. He's a very unpredictable player. He offers a lot of good, but this was his worst game by far in a U.S. shirt. He was shocking, honestly. Part of it was because he had to sit back and do a little bit of defensive duty because Arston was on occasion nowhere to be found on defense. But let's be honest, Diego Luna, there was so much talk about him the entire tournament, so much hype around him. People saying, myself included, that he had locked himself into a World Cup roster spot. And again, people debating whether he should be in the best 11 when everyone's available. And of course, as a Mexican-American, he spoke several times before the match about how much representing the USMNT means to him, about how he was the only one in his household cheering for the U.S. In U.S. versus Mexico games. You would have thought that this would have been his Super Bowl, so to speak. He would have been extra motivated to come out here and perform. But no, he did absolutely nothing. The one chance that he did get, he got a perfect layoff at the top of the box, and he just skies it, nowhere even close to making an effort on target. just has to be doing better from that position, and especially when that's the only position, good, dangerous position you get yourself into the entire match. I thought his body language was really poor as well. It just seemed like he wasn't motivated, or he was discouraged by his early lack of involvement, and I think that kind of got in his head. I just ultimately think the occasion was too big for him on the night. I think the lights were too bright, so to speak, and ultimately I thought, especially compared to what I would expect from the players, he was the most disappointing. I'm going to give him a 2.5. I think I need better from someone who's been getting as much hype as he has, and someone who has the ability that he has, and just all the reasons that I said. I'm just hugely disappointed by Luna's performance. And he was liking messages on Instagram after the game from Mexico fans about how bad he was. So I'm hoping that maybe he can use that as motivation. And next time he gets a chance to play against Mexico in a USMNT shirt, he comes out a lot better than he did tonight and really performs. But just so underwhelming from Luna. I'm very disappointed by his performance. Next up, Malik Tillman. And he was basically the only attack for most of the game. He was by himself because Ajamong up top continued to offer absolutely nothing, as he has for the entire tournament. There was one occasion in the first half where Tillman got the ball back, started a counter. The only one with him was Ajamong, and he, instead of passing it to Ajamong, he did the right thing, tried to dribble through the entire defense, kept the ball actually, held it up even a little bit to give Luna time to get into a position. He tried to lay it off, but Luna just wasn't there because, again, Diego Luna, nowhere to be found for most of the game, just wasn't getting into situations. And honestly, I think Malik Tillman really did not have a lot of help. I think he showed some solid things defensively, which he has done the entire tournament, which has been nice to see. In the attack, he just really didn't create much, but again, there wasn't much help around him. I'm just going to give him a 5. I think, all things considered, he was one of the better players, but if there was players around him who had contributed more, like, for example, if we had a real number 9 up top, if we had a real winger out on the right instead of a center midfielder who's more defensive orientated, if Diego Luna decided to show up on the day, if Luca de la Torre decided to show up on the day, maybe Tillman would have had more options to create some chances, but ultimately just wasn't very effective. So I'm going to have to give him a 5. And last up for the starters, at least, is Patrick Ajimong, who, again, was very bad. He won a few fouls in positions. I think he was actually the one who won the foul that led to the Berhalter to Richards goal. So I'll give him slight props for that. But at the end of the day, that is the only thing that he is good for, winning fouls by using his physicality. And he didn't win any in dangerous areas. He was ragdolled for most of the time. I think he was on the ground more times than he actually touched the ball. That might be a slight exaggeration, but that's what it seemed like, at least watching the game. And this isn't the first time that it's happened. It's the same thing every single match with Patrick Ajimong. And I just don't understand at all what's going through Poch's head, continuing to start him match in, match out, when he continues to just absolutely offer nothing in the attack. He's a black hole up front. When you pass him the ball, you lose the ball. I saw someone tweet during the game on Twitter that they were going to start judging the players that pass it to Ajimong because they know it's a guaranteed turnover. And he had a point, because every time Ajimong touched the ball, it seemed we gave it away. So there's nothing more I can say, really. He also had a chance towards the end of the game where he was kind of through on goal. He's inside the 6-yard box, and he just completely fluffs the shot. Very, very weak effort that goes into the Malagon's hands, the keeper. I'm going to give him a 1. He's just so bad, honestly. And my patience with him was low to begin with. I think I've said in every single video that he's been poor, because he has. The only match that he really could say anything for was the Trinidad one, maybe the Haiti one as well, because he scored. But he just doesn't offer anything that's enticing for a striker, and he shouldn't be anywhere near this level. I hope he does well at Derby County. I hope he proves me wrong. But I don't want to see him in the USMNT shirt again, honestly. So that's the starting lineup. The subs, maybe I can rate Damian Downs. He came on in the 70th minute, didn't really have much of an opportunity to do anything. I thought his dummy was smart. The Ajimong chance that I just mentioned, it happened because a ball came into the box. Downs, I think, may have thought he was offside, so he decided to leave it for Ajimong. In hindsight, I don't think he was offside, and he probably should have taken it himself, because we know Ajimong can't score. But I thought in the heat of the moment, it was the right decision. Ultimately, I think he was okay. I'm just going to give him a 5.5. I think he offered some decent effort off the bench, and I think it was the right decision to bring him on. It just should have been done a lot earlier. Honestly, I probably would have done it at halftime. I would have started him in the first place, but we know Poch was never going to do that. So I think he's another one of the small positives from this tournament that we can take away. He's finally cap tied. He's a USMNT player, and we might have something in the future because he's still so young. Just turned 21 years old. Actually, it was his birthday on the day of the game. It would have been nice to see him get a start for his birthday, but regardless, happy birthday to him. Hopefully, he will be a future mainstay for the USMNT if he continues to progress well. The rest of the subs, I can't even really rate them because McGlynn came on in the 82nd minute. Tolkien and Aronson came on in the 86th minute. It's the same story that we've seen from Pochettino the entire tournament. His stubbornness, his inability to manage a game entirely. And we saw this at Chelsea when he was there too. We saw it at PSG as well. The warning signs were there, but we chose to ignore it out of optimism because, I mean, honestly, there has not been a lot to be optimistic about for the USMNT for the last couple of years. So myself and a lot of the fan base, I think, rightly chose to be optimistic about the hire, but he's just so incompetent from the rosters he selects to the lineups he puts out to his stubbornness, his inability to make changes before the games, in the games. He just doesn't do anything that you would want from a manager at all, let alone one that's being paid as much as he is. I've lost all my patience with Pochettino, to be quite honest. I think he needs to be sacked. I know it's not going to happen because USSF is happy. They're selling out games, not to USMNT fans. They're selling out games to away fans. Guatemala was an away game in St. Louis. This game against Mexico, as it always is when we play Mexico. In the States or in Mexico, it doesn't really matter. It's always a Mexico home game. Our fans don't show up, and you can't blame them because the ticket prices are too high, and there's nothing appealing about going to watch the USMNT. I went to the game against Switzerland, and it made me completely or not want to go to any USMNT games again until the World Cup, honestly, because I was debating going to some of the Gold Cup games. I debated going to the semifinal in St. Louis, but going to that Switzerland game, it just left me so uninspired that I didn't see a need to pay way too much for such a poor product from the USMNT and from USSFs. But that's just one of many things that needs to change. That's a whole different topic for a whole different video. I think I've mentioned everything that I needed to. At the end of the day, there's not much that we can take away from this summer, and that's the unfortunate reality of the situation. We will make a video. Hopefully, Yodi will be back for that. He's been very busy recently with just his job, life, all kinds of things. Hopefully he'll be back for that video, but we will make one in a few days, completely recapping the entire camp and just some general overall takeaways that we have learned this summer, both positive and negative, that we can take into the fall and our friendlies and ultimately into the World Cup as well next year. But that's it. Let me know in the comments what you thought of what I said. What did you think of the game? Which players stood out in a positive way? Which players stood out in a negative way? What do you make of Poch so far? Do you think it's time to sack him? Do you think he's done a good job? What do you think of his subs, his lineup decisions, everything, all of that? Please like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. It means a lot. It helps us grow. But with that, that's everything. Hopefully our next USMNT camp will bring some better results and just better things in general. But that's it. Enjoy the rest of your day and goodbye.